Time Tunnel, the Irwin Allen sci-fi series from the 1960s, used to run along Star Trek with Lost in Space. It's getting a remake, and it's going to be in a shared universe with other properties like Land of the Giants and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. I think this is actually going to be really good. I think it's going to come out good. You know, this property is not as popular as something like Star Trek, and the producers are going to have more control over the properties, and ultimately, I think this is going to come out good. So I'm excited for this. It's an Irwin Allen shared universe, and they said it was going to be between this shared universe is going to involve Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Land of the Giants, and Time Tunnel. And that in of itself is huge. Time Tunnel, I just started watching it. I watched the first two episodes. The first episode had to do with them going back to the time of the Titanic. So they went back in time in the first episode. And then it ends where the second episode is about them on a flight to the moon in 10 years in their future. And this flight was going to crash on the moon. And their goal is to prevent that crash. One of the things I noticed from both episodes is that they don't alter history. They're just present to witness the history that happens. And this week that just passed, there was a unmanned ship that went to the moon and crashed, supposedly. Publicly, they said it crashed, but maybe classified, confidential. It didn't really crash. But one of the reasons why it's so hard to land on the moon, and the second episode is so relevant, you know, One Way to the Moon is so relevant because it's so hard to land on the moon. All right? There's so many craters. So because there's so many craters and the landscape is so unpredictable, they, no one knows. It's unpredictable to land on the moon. The fact that they were able to land men on the moon is incredible. And you speak to people in the 1960s, and they say, yes, on TV, we saw the whole thing. We saw a man land on the moon. But now, there's people who doubt that man even landed on the moon, and why didn't man, why was there 30 years in between people landing on the moon and then they just stopped it? And they let 30 years go by without anyone else ever landing on the moon. That's the big question. It's like they ended going to the moon. They ended men going to the moon, or so we think. Because there could be some unknown company that doesn't belong to any country that made a space program where they just made a space on the moon, and there's things humanity doesn't know about, and there's classified stories, there's things in the world that people will never know. And how do you know that no human on this planet has ever made a base in the deepest part of the ocean. Okay? And there's like this popular fact that if you look up, why can't I build structures under the ocean? Oh, because the ocean floor is constantly shifting and all the currents and everything. Well, that goes to go above ground too. The only thing is when you're underwater, there's higher pressure. So, yeah, the structures would need to be built differently. But it's totally possible to build structures underwater where humanity can live in. And maybe, you know, they cloned some sort of structure, like an artificial coral shell that's huge, but that acts like a base underwater. And these are the things that could be going on that humanity doesn't know about. That with, you look at aircraft carriers and you look at our military, and everything is influenced off of World War II. You're not going to tell me that some uber rich, bigger than countries, like some uber rich entities that are bigger than countries, are able to invest into something like that. Of course they could. And that's why sci-fi shows are so important. Elon Musk himself said that it was sci-fi comics and like science fiction shows like Star Trek that inspired him to make SpaceX. So, these 2 episodes of Time Tunnel, I saw the first 2 episodes. It was about going back in time to the Titanic. And that episode was really cool because it was like a sequel to James Cameron's Titanic movie. And I don't think they ever prevent the Titanic from sinking. That's the hilarious part of the episode, that there's all this hootering and hollering throughout the episode. But I don't think they ever saved the Titanic from sinking. Like right about where they're about to save it from sinking, in those lower decks where everybody is like, where the people are working really hard on in the steam and everything in the lower decks. They get transported at the end of that episode. It ends on a cliffhanger where they get transported to that moon mission, One Way to the Moon. And the One Way to the Moon episode is really good. If you're a fan of the original Star Trek, you're going to love Time Tunnel. Maybe even more than Lost in Space. Because this only lasted 1 season, but now that they're remaking this Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Lands of the Giants into a shared universe, into their own shows, into their own remakes of shows, I think the possibilities are endless. And bring it on. Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, I think, was a book before it was a movie. I'm not sure. But I think this is going to be good. I think this is going to be good. So tell me your thoughts. Comment below. Are you a fan of Time Tunnel? Have you read Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea? Have you seen the original movie? Have you seen the original shows? Because they did have their Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, I think, had its own movie. I'm not sure. But it was also a show. Lands of the Giants was a show. And Time Tunnel was a show. So, do you agree with these things being a shared universe? I do. If they can make Marvel into a shared universe, they can make the Irwin Allen stuff into a shared universe. And what do you think? What do you think about this? Comment below, because I'm excited. All right, I'm excited. And we need to see some original sci-fi. It can't only be Star Trek, Star Wars, and Aliens and Predator. You know, you got to have, and Doctor Who, you need to have the subversive, okay? You need to make what started it all cool again. You know, we need to see the Phantom. We need to see the Shadow. We need to see Flash Gordon. We need to see Green Hornets. You know, I know Netflix did Lost in Space, but it was crap. It was shit. You know, maybe we can see a Lost in Space that is like retro Lost in Space. You know, like what they're doing with the new Fantastic Four movie. Like, make it retro. Instead of like trying to relate it to our reality, relate it to our world, actually make a remake of that 1960s Lost in Space show. You know, but apart from that, you know, I really didn't like the Netflix Lost in Space, but at least we're gonna get a different take here. All right, at least we're gonna get a different take on the stuff. Um, and Time Tunnel is an excellent series. I'm gonna review all the episodes, all the episodes. So take this as my review of the first two fucking episodes. All right, take this as the first two fucking episodes. All right, where I'll admit, guys. Maybe at first they're kind of slow, but it's all about the idea of what these episodes represent. Remember, like, even if you're watching this episode, I believe it's only available to stream on Prime Video right now. And that's where I saw it. I saw it on Prime Video. But I really loved the second episode, One Way to the Moon, because I had been watching all these SpaceX moon launches throughout the week, and I was thinking to myself, oh man, you know, I want to be watching a show that's about going to the moon and space traveling and Star Trek. And I it was so bad that I just went back and started rewatching the original Star Trek for like the 100th time. But that's how great it is you can go back, watch the original Star Trek, and discover something new and imagine something in your head, something new each time. The original Star Trek is such a great show. The original series is such a great show. Um so you know, and I'm gonna be going back and I'm gonna be watching all of these science fiction shows. But I'm gonna be reviewing all of these time tunnel episodes because a remake is happening. And are you excited? You know, comment below. Are you excited? Have you watched Land of the Giants? Have you watched Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea? You know, these are all things that I'm going to be reviewing here. And if you're a fan, like and subscribe. And then I have to review episode 3, right? But out of episode 1 and 2, I recommend episode 2 is so great. You know, them it was like a great 2 hours of, you can make it into a movie, you know. But anybody who's asking, oh, another crash landing, well, yeah, there's been a lot of space mishaps, like when it comes to launches, and that's not saying in the future there's not going to be mishaps, there's not going to be accidents. And in this episode, One Way to the Moon, it talks about that. It talks about a spaceship that crashed and time travelers that go back in time to prevent it.